Welcome into Deep Waters here on ProBox TV. We take a deep dive into all things boxing. Big fight Saturday in Phoenix. Jesse Bam Rodriguez tries to win, that's right, the WBC super flyweight title against Gallo Estrada, who's a little bit older, much more experienced, 44 wins in his pro career, 28 knockouts. Jimmy Smith in studio, joined via Zoom by Paulie Malignaggi, Chris Algieri. Paulie, when you talk about Bam Rodriguez, everybody says the same things. Not only is he good, not only is he talented, not only is he young in his prime, 24 years old, he's got that it factor, right? People want to watch him. He has that next level skill set that people are drawn to. What do you think of his chances on Saturday and what he brings?
Yeah, I mean, this is just another big name. He's taking on all comers right now. He's been looking good. He's been really mowing down the competition, and you keep really gaining interest in him, because it's not just the way he's mowing them down. It's not just the fact that he's mowing them down. It's the way he's done it. Also, he's he's got a $1 million smile, charismatic. Really a guy you really love to watch. And also excites you because, like I said, I mean, he's the kind of guy who loves to fight top opposition. These weight classes in general, though, these small weight classes in general, they typically, when you got top guys, they typically fight each other. There's nothing to save it for because in smaller weight classes, it's harder to make big money unless you fight one another. And if you notice, these top guys that have come around in this similar generation right now at this moment have made the flyweight divisions, super exciting, and they've all taken each other on. I mean, if you look at Estrada, his opponent, I mean, you look at his last few fights, he's also just been taking on top guys as well.
Is it that willingness, Chris, for Bam to fight the best guy? Doesn't run from anybody. Is it that willingness in today's day and age that gets him such a great fan base, man?
It's a lot of things. It's a lot of what Paulie just mentioned. He's a affable kid. I know him personally. Him and his brother Joshua Franco they're just fantastic, hardworking guys who come out super respectful, love the sport, put in the work, and then obviously they have the skill set to match that effort. And listen, he's got that warrior mentality. He wants these big fights, and he's been taking the heads of the guardians of this division for a while. Estrada's just another guy. Another target for him. He's been working with Chocolatito. They've been sparring quite a bit. That's been a big thing on social media. So the possibility of them fighting down the line probably looks pretty slim. But really, those are the last two guys in that era. He's already beat Rungvisai. He's already beat Quadras. Those are like the four horsemen of that flyweight division: the Quadras, Rungvisai, Chocolatito, and Estrada. And he's already beaten Quadras. He's already beaten Rungvisai. He's got Estrada now, and he's been working with Chocolatito. So he's laid the groundwork to be the next great super fly stud of these these lighter divisions. The fight with Sonny Edwards, which I thought was a real fight, it wasn't. He was completely dominant, totally outboxed, outpunched, out everything Sonny Edwards, who I actually held very highly. I thought he was a very, very good boxer. He had nothing for Bam. The kid really lived up to his name. But aside from just being Bam, he's a very, very good boxer. I get very excited whenever he fights. He's one of my favorite fighters in the world. Him and Inoue are probably my two favorite guys, which is funny because they're both under 130 pounds.
Well, you talked about the sparring with Chocolatito. Lance Pugmire from Boxing Scene caught up with Bam in camp. This is what we had to say about it.
The best camp I've had, sparring, training, running, I've done it all. I went the extra round, extra mile, I've done it all. So come find out, I'll be more than ready.
What was the most important thing you gained from sparring with Chocolatito?
Just the inside game. I mean, he has one of the best, not only in the smaller weight division, but in all of boxing. So he has little tricks here and there that I was able to pick up and able to, get some knowledge from.
Is your youth advantage one of the greatest advantages you have over Estrada as you head into this fight in Phoenix?
Yeah, I believe so. I'm the fresher fighter. I haven't been in as many wars as Estrada. He's already about, like 34? So, yeah. I mean, he's been through it all. He's been through many wars. I feel like that's going to play a huge role, not only in the fight, but in the later rounds.
We've been able to watch some of your preparation here in the gym, and it is so impressive. As you have prepared for this fight, do you feel like there are some assets of your game that really no fighter can match based on the work that you put in here?
Yeah, I feel like my footwork is definitely one of the best in all of boxing. I mean, some will disagree, some will agree, but I feel like that's one of my best attributes.
And it helps position you for your power shots too,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, I feel like once I get my angles in, they're not expecting that. punch to come from that angle, so it's more of a shock to them. And like you said, it just adds that much power, that much more power.
Paulie, sparring with Chocolatito, he talked about the inside game, the little tricks, the veteran things Chocolatito does. How much of that do you think will seep over into Bam's game because of that sparring?
Yeah, I think a top quality sparring always makes you better. You know, you always seek out the top quality sparring when you're getting ready for big important fights. It's both for the skill set, the subliminal little subtle things like that Bam was talking about with Chocolatito, as far as the little sudden moves, a little veteran tactics, and also the intensity. You need guys on your level. You know, you can't just be sparring punching bags because it doesn't really get you to that intensity. The intensity is only reached a certain threshold, can only reach a certain threshold if a guy can be on your level or similar. And that's why with all the benefits of bringing in a guy like Chocolatito, who also, of course, has a couple of fights with Estrada, also a couple of close decisions with Estrada. So there's a lot there to unpack as far as what the benefits for Rodriguez, as long as he's not leaving it in the gym, which at a young age, you're probably not. He's a high energy guy, super skilled. And he even talked about the fact that he's not really the one at risk of having had too many tough fights or too many tough moments. He's the fresher guy. It's more so Estrada that probably has to be careful not to leave it in the gym at his age.
Chris, you can almost hear and feel the fight IQ coming off this kid at 24 years old. Very mature responses to all of those questions. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, that's how him and his brother are. His brother's nickname is actually the Professor for a reason. They're very, very calculated young men. They take this sport very, very seriously. And you can see that from any interview he's ever done, any interaction I've had with him or his brother. They're very serious young men. They love the sport. There's a lot of love and passion, but also they're clinical in their approach. And you see that the way he fights too, the way he cuts his angles, the way he creates opportunities. He does something that a lot of young fighters lack these days. He creates openings. He creates opportunities. And that's why he gives these veterans so much trouble. Because if it's not there, these guys are super tight. He's trying to find these holes. Good veterans, you know where to put their hands. They get their good reactions. But he's able to create openings, even against top-level guys. I called that Cuadras fight. I was so impressed. He took it on like 2 weeks' notice. He jumped up 2 weight classes, and he put on a master class. Cutting angles, landing big shots, hurting Cuadras. Cuadras is super, super tough. A guy who actually dropped Estrada a couple of years ago. So it's just, I don't know. I don't have a bad thing to say about this young man. I'm thoroughly impressed with him. He impresses me every time out. You know, he had one tough fight a couple of years ago against another young guy, and it turns out he broke his jaw in the fight. And they gave a reason why he wasn't, you know, the tip-top guy he's always been. Came back, recovered, looked fantastic against Sonny Edwards. And you can tell from those interviews, his mindset, where he's at. There's no better confidence boost in the world than being in shape. And that's one thing that I think you missed, Paul. Everything you said about that top-level sparring is super important, that top-flight sparring. But the last part that really matters is right here. Understanding that guy who you used to look up to, that guy that you have been watching since you were a kid, you are whooping their ass now. You're neck to neck with them now. You're head to head. You're going at it. You're punching them. You're punching you. There's an opportunity for that, to understand who you are when you're in with someone like that.
What do we say, right? When your idols become your rivals, you know you've made it. Well, he's a young kid, but he trains old school. Is that the edge? We'll discuss it when we come back.
June 28th, live from the Entertainment and Sports Arena in Washington, D.C., WBA Super Featherweight World Champion Lamont Roach Jr. will defend his title against undefeated challenger, fearless Fergal McCrory of Ireland. Catch all the action live in Washington, D.C. on ProBox TV, or even better, download the ProBox TV app.
Welcome back to Deep Waters here on ProBox TV. And I always say it, you're not a champ to defend your title. Lamont Roach Jr., a homecoming Washington, D.C., taking on the undefeated Irishman, Fergal McCrory. Always brings it, works the body, very, very aggressive. Will that bring the best out of Lamont Roach Jr.? Find out. ProBox TV this Friday. So we're discussing Bam Rodriguez, a budding star in boxing. Now, other side of the equation, we talked about his dedication, we talked about his training. The other side of the equation is he's taken on a veteran. That's right, when you look at the opposition. Gallo Estrada, much more experienced, a veteran of the game. Paulie, what does he have to do to avoid the inevitable to a lot of people passing of the torch in this fight?
Well, I mean, he's got to be Gallo Estrada, but how much does he have left? You know, 2 really tough fights with Chocolatito. He stopped Carlos Cuadras. He's been impressive. Listen, he's been impressive, but you start to see if this is the sort of the end of the road. This is looked at as the passing of the torch fight, because no matter how hot Estrada has been, Bam Rodriguez has been even hotter. And of course, when you're the hot chick, always gets replaced by the younger hot chick as the older hot chick gets past their prime, right? So this is sort of Estrada was sort of like the former hot chick. So he's got to do everything he can. He's still quality. Sometimes the older hot chick is still quality, but the new hot chick is the one that gets everybody's eyes. So Estrada has to do a little bit more. Any close decision is probably going to go in Rodriguez's favor as well. I expect a really, really good fight. If anything, if you're not able to get the win, you show your value in the fight, and maybe you're able to get another fight, or you're able to get another rematch, or something of that sort. Of course, beating Rodriguez would be huge, but it's not really in the cards for what you'd expect from what Rodriguez has been looking like lately.
Chris, a lot of times the old school guy, all right, the Gallo Estrada, his training sets him apart because he trains really old school. Bam trains really old school. 30 rounds of mitt work. He talks about shadow boxing, doing footwork for hours and hours and hours. That's an art form that's kind of lost in modern boxing. You think that throwback training, how much do you think that's going to help him? We talked about the sparring with Chocolatito, the hard sparring. How much do you think it's going to help him against a veteran guy?
You know, Jimmy, I think it's everything. Look at that photo behind you. Look how much bigger Bam is. Yeah. You know, they're listed almost about the same size in terms of height and weight and reach. Bam looks markedly bigger than Estrada, and he's younger, he's bigger, he trains similar fashion, that old school mentality. His skill sets and skill level, boxing IQ is next level. There's just a lot of things stacked against Estrada. And listen, I'm not knocking Estrada at all. He is an absolute legend. He's never lost to anyone he's ever fought. He has 3 losses, but he beat them in rematches, usually multiple times. That's how good of a fighter is. He's beat everyone he's ever fought. So yeah, he's lost to them, but he's returned and he's beat them again. So he's beaten everyone. Yeah, exactly. Lennox Lewis, another guy who has defeated everyone he's ever stepped in the ring with and scored knockouts against the guys that actually beat him. So like Lennox Lewis did. Estrada didn't knock everybody out, but still, he beat all the guys that beat him. So he's one of those guys. I mean, he's not used to losing. And he's got a young guy in front of him who's going to be bigger. He's going to be stronger. He's going to be younger. He's got that vitality. But, man, experience is, I always say, that is the one thing that you cannot put objective numbers to it. Experience is one of those things that is very difficult to understand. And you can only understand when you're in that ring. So, just like you said, champ, for Estrada to win this fight, he's got to be Estrada. But how much of Estrada is left, and how much can he make happen against that big, strong, young man standing right next to him?
Well, if you're in the corner, the veteran has to think of some way to upset Bam's confidence. Not an easy thing to do. When we come back, where can he go in the 115-pound division when we return?
June 28th. Live from the Entertainment and Sports Arena in Washington, D.C., WBA Super Featherweight World Champion Lamont Roach Jr. will defend his title against undefeated challenger, fearless Fergal McCrory of Ireland. Catch all the action live in Washington, D.C. on ProBox TV, or even better, download the ProBox TV app.
Welcome back into ProBox TV's Deep Water Scene. You want to fight in front of your hometown crowd? Well, everybody wants tickets. Everyone wants to hang out with you while you're in town. A lot of distractions. How will Lamont Roach Jr. handle his first title defense against undefeated Irishman Fergal McCrory? How will he master the moment? That is the question. Find out Friday on ProBox TV. It's going to be an amazing fight. We will be ringside. But right now, we're discussing the 115-pound division. Bam Rodriguez take on Gallo Estrada. Where does the winner go? Probably Bam, could be Gallo Estrada. But when you look at the names at 115 pounds, some real talent there. Where can a victorious Bam go? Kosi Tanaka, WBO champion. Fernando Martinez of the IBF. Kazuta Ioka, WBA. WBC is Juan Francisco Estrada. That's right, some fights coming up. Fernando Martinez taking on Ioka. Martinez undefeated at 16-0. A lot of talent in that division. Paulie, where would you like to see a victorious Bam? Let's say hypothetically he wins his fight. Who would you like to see him take on next?
Unify. You know, these again, these weight classes. It's hard to make money unless the top guys fight each other. It's typically not these are typically not always popular weight classes in the West. They're typically more popular weight classes in the East. But right now, because of these Latino and American fighters like Estrada, like Chocolatito, like Bam Rodriguez, we've seen these weight classes gain some popularity in the West as well. But there's also champions like you said, Ioka and Mazuto in the East as well. You'd love to see some unifications. You'd love to see the guys take each other on. I think that's the only way you generate interest for smaller weight classes, to be honest. You know, it's not a lot of room for just bland contenders in a way. In a time where we got 4 world champions, I think you need to see unifications in these small weight classes. And I think that these guys are not really scared to do that. We've noticed that these smaller guys take each other on. They don't beat around the bush. And so I'd like to see that continue to happen. I'm not quite sure what Bam's ceiling is, but this fight on Saturday will also tell us a lot because he's fighting another very good opponent.
Yeah, for entertainment value, what's the fight to make for you? Assuming Bam is victorious, Chris, might be on the road in Japan. What are your thoughts?
Well, you took the words out of my mouth. I saw 2 Japanese names on that list.
Yeah.
And if I'm Bam Rodriguez, I'm going over there. I'm going over there and I'm collecting titles and I'm getting that experience, getting those fights. I think it's important for him to get that experience, to travel the world, get acknowledgement from those fans over there, have them see his brilliance. And make that money, man. The money for these lighter weights, that's in the East. Dollar bills, y'all. So I want to see Bam get that money too. Get those titles, get that money, get that bag, do all that. And I think Japan is a really good look for him.
Yeah, the photos you were just seeing is Ioka, who is, of course, champion at 115 pounds, aggressive, and we've seen butts in seats. No, in a way, putting butts in seats at the Tokyo Dome, huge live gates. You want a piece of that, and the excitement of fighting over in Japan. Paulie, do you think that's where Bam might be headed with a victory?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, you go where the big fights are, where the titles are, and of course where the crowds are. And for these weight classes, Japan seems to have it. And also the aggressive fighters. You know, all these fighters are not just champions, but they're also aggressive fighters. So you have great style.
Warrior spirit. They always talk about that.
Yeah, great. It's aggressive mentality. It's fan friendly. It brings a lot of fanfare. It's exciting, and I think people would enjoy those unifications.
Can't talk about young fighters at lightweight classes without discussing the possibility of them moving up. We discuss how heavy could Bam get in the length of his career, only 24 years old. We'll tackle it when we come back. Welcome back into Deep Waters here on ProBox TV. Lamont Roach Jr. was ringside with us a couple weeks ago for our Wednesday night fights. He was chomping at the bit to get in the ring for his first title defense. Washington, D.C., homecoming fight. Don't miss it. And that's right, this Friday, ProBox TV against the undefeated Irishman, Fergal McCrory. It's going to be a war. But we're discussing 115 and Bam Rodriguez taking on Gallo Estrada. Now, Paulie, I'm going to start with you. I know you're critical of talking about the weight jumps fighters could make all the time. This guy's 24. It's not as though we're talking about a fighter who's been through the ringer, late 20s, early 30s, only 24 years old. Realistically, do you think we might see him move up a little bit in the next coming years?
Yeah, he's only 24. He's been up a few weight classes already, right? I mean, at least two, 3. Not typically growing at 24 years old. You know, you're filling out maybe a little bit more, but you're not typically growing at 24 years old. So the age is not really something that is a factor. You say, oh, he can keep growing. Not really. I mean, this is why I hate having these conversations. This is why we have performance enhancing drugs in boxing, because we constantly have these kind of discussions, and these fighters feel like they have to go and move up in weight constantly in order to go get a dollar and to go to retain their value. Otherwise, they don't have their value. I will keep reiterating the fact that Marvin Hagler was world champion for 6 years at middleweight. Was champion for so long that guys actually were his mandatory. He beat them. They went back in the rankings, worked their way back down to become mandatory challenger again. And once again, Hagler was the champion again and beat them again. Mustafa Hamsho was a guy like that. So I'm not, you know, I don't know how many weight classes this guy can go up. I mean, I typically feel that the reason more weight classes are jumped now than ever before is because of performance enhancing drugs. So it's a weird conversation to have. He's excellent where he's at right now. I'd love to continue to watch him work, but I don't know what. I'm not I'm not his scientist if he has one. So I don't know how many weight classes he can jump.
Yeah, Chris, let's talk about that pressure. I mean, it's across combat sports, by the way. Every combat sport has how many world titles at how many different weight classes. Is it true that consistent greatness in the weight class underrated today? That just being great in one weight class, you want to be a 4-division, 5-division champion, when being great, as Paulie pointed out, in one weight class is hard enough as it is. Do you think we overrate that, the ability to move up in weight class? Not everybody can do it.
Well, no, absolutely not. And I don't know if it's necessarily overrated, because listen, we talk about most title defenses all the time. Bernard Hopkins is another guy that comes to mind. Carlos Monzon, Champ, you mentioned Hagler. You know, these are guys that held their title and stayed in their weight class and didn't grow out of the weight class. You know, they stayed disciplined throughout their career. They did what they had to do to make the weight. They suffered. They sweated down. They made the weight, and they fought. You know, I think there's a lot to be envied about those fighters as well, and a lot to look up to for them. And it's just we're in a different time now, man. And you know, Paulie mentioned the PED situation, which is obviously an issue more and more, and it's going to happen more and more.
I'm going to say something, Champ. It was special because when you moved up in weight, you were giving up something. You were giving up power that you weren't taking up as you. Now, guys you were fighting were getting hit harder from their regular normal weight class than they were from you because you were now moving up in weight. So you were giving up power, and also you were giving up your chin a little bit because now you're getting hit by guys that are bigger, and those kind of guys haven't been hitting you. So it was special before, and it wasn't as common before because you had to do it and be very crafty to do it because you weren't able to carry some advantages up. The thing you see now is guys are moving up and they're still carrying these advantages. Guys are moving up and they're still getting hit. Their chins are just unstoppable all of a sudden.
Paulie, they're actually getting
carrying
better.
Up power.
They're hitting harder and taking punches better.
So yeah. So again, I mean, the PED usage is obvious. No matter how much the groupies want to you know, go circumvent it and cry about it when we talk about it, but that's why I don't like to have these conversations because, you know, you have beautiful, beautiful fighters like Bam Rodriguez. I love watching him work because he's not just an exciting fighter. He's not just $1 million smile. He's a very tactical fighter whose work you love to watch. And I think he can do a lot of great work, and he has done a lot of great work. But when I feel like you start to muddy the waters when you have these kind of conversations. I don't know what more heavyweight classes he can move up because again, when you see guys moving up now, you don't see them moving up with that craftiness, having to make up what they're lacking, which is power and chin as they move up in weight. You lose power and you lose chin as you move up in weight because you're getting hit by bigger guys and you're fighting guys who are used to getting hit harder. You know, this is why when guys like Robinson were doing it and everybody else doing it, it was really special, but they still suffered trying to do it. Go ahead.
To circle this back to Bam and Champ, that you actually were just touching on a point that I wanted to make about Bam. So Bam actually jumped up 2 weight classes to fight Quadras on short notice. He went up to 115. He fought a couple times there. He fought Rungvisai there, he fought Quadras. Then he moved back down to 112, won a world title there. So he had a world title 15, moved back down to 112, won a world title there where he was actually campaigning at earlier. Had a couple fights there. Wasn't looking as good. Goes back up to 15, completely smashes Sonny Edwards, and is now moving up once again. These kind of jumps that he's making aren't crazy. So I don't want to push any discussions on and I don't think you were saying that either, but I want to take that, you know, take Bam out of that situation. But in terms of his craftiness, he is a guy that I could see moving up into 118. You know, 120 might be a stretch. He's a very, very short guy. But he is crafty enough and he has good boxing skills, much more than just his name, Bam, signifies. He's a very, very crafty fighter, and he's learning. Obviously, he's still working with Chocontito, talking about the little things that he's learning. So a guy like him, I think, could traverse more weight classes than another guy who's just kind of jumping over weight classes. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see. He's been up and down already in his young age, and he is 24. But there's a long career left for him. In terms of where he's going to end up, God knows.
And speed and skills kill. That's right, especially in the lighter weight classes. Bam Rodriguez, plenty of that. But Gallo Estrada, a very tough veteran. Enjoy the fights. We'll see you next time on Deep Waters.